what were the 3 things that you learned from poker that now you find valuable as a VC? And how can founders also like apply these things in like building a company, right?
Yeah. It's interesting because poker, I actually feel like poker is very analogous to trading, but it's actually quite disanalogous to venture for some of the reasons I mentioned earlier. But there are some things that I think are universal skills that you learn from poker. One of these universal skills is thinking probabilistically. In poker, you never tell yourself, oh, this person, I can look into their eyes and I see they have Jack 10. You don't do that, right? What you do is you say, okay, you look at this person, you take in all the information and you say, they can have Jack 10, or they could have had Queen 9, or they could have a flush draw. And it's probably 20% this, 30% that. Like, this is the way that if you become a really robust, really developed poker player, you start thinking in terms of what are called ranges. You start thinking probabilistically. And as you get better and better at the skill, you realize that actually this is kind of universal. Almost everything, if you're thinking about it clearly, you should be thinking probabilistically. Nothing is certain, or nothing is 100% or 0% to happen. Most things are somewhere in between. And if you can't process a probability distribution when you're thinking about how to make a decision, then you're just going to make bad decisions.
Right.
Because the world isn't clearly divided into this will happen and this will not happen. So that's thing number one. Thing number two, and this is one thing that I realize that so many people are bad at, especially when it comes to their own careers, is not thinking clearly about downsides. So, in poker, sometimes you make a call and you might lose. Sometimes you go all in and you might lose all your money. And the only question is not, did I win or did I lose? The question is, what were the odds when I went into this decision, right? So if I lose, how much would I have lost? If I win, how much would I win? If you're not asking yourself that question and you're just asking, what is the probability that I lose? Then again, you're making a very deep fundamental mistake. And this is something that I notice a lot of people only think about the probability that they'll fuck up, the probability of some kind of downside scenario. And they don't think, one, how bad is that downside? And two, like, how good is the upside if I'm right? And those should always be incorporated into your decision making. So a lot of people, they think, oh, I shouldn't start a startup. Why not? Well, because, what if startup fails? Startup is very likely to fail. So, okay, well, what if it succeeds? Like, how good is the upside if it succeeds? And second, okay, let's say it does fail. What actually happens if your startup fails? Well, if, let's say you have, you do BD at some tech company, you build a startup, the startup fails. Well, you got paid because you raised money, some seed round or something for your startup, or pre-seed for your startup. So you weren't making nothing. You're making less than you were at your tech company, but you're not making nothing. And then, a year and a half later, the startup fails. You go back to your tech company, you say, hey, I need a job. They'll probably still hire you. Why not? You're still experienced. You actually have a year and a half more of experience. Maybe they'll even give you a raise because they're like, oh, you built a startup. That's like pretty cool. But like the downside is like, oh, maybe it's like what, half a year of earnings that you lost or something like that at the end of the day. So if you really clearly see the downside, it's not that bad. Right? And so really that should make you very likely to start a startup if you see that clearly. But so many people are just like, oh, well, it's probably going to fail and I leave my cushy tech job and it's going to be, really risky for me. So it's being able to see clearly how much can I win, how much can I lose is a huge, huge skill that every poker player trains on every single day. And most people just aren't training themselves to think that way. The last thing I'd say, if you force me to do three, probably the third is emotional resilience, right? Is that poker is full of ups and downs. There's a lot of volatility, there's a lot of swings, and at the end of the day, even though you're making the right decision, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win, because poker is a game partially of skill, partially of luck. And so every poker player has had the experience of going through long downtrends, right? Long periods where I'm playing my cards well, I'm making good decisions, but the luck is just going against me. And you have to be able to push through that and not let it affect your psychology, not let it affect your thinking. This is a very difficult skill for most people because most people select their lives to be in such a way that they're basically never getting negative feedback, or they're almost never getting negative feedback. Most people try everything they can to remove all luck from their lives. People actually spend a lot of money just to remove the luck from their lives, regardless of how much impact that luck has, right? People will buy, a warranty on a, $50 trinket, just because like, oh, if something goes wrong, I don't want to ever feel like anything bad ever happened. And this kind of mentality makes people very fragile with respect to their ability to go do things that are risky. And this is a big part of the reason why things that involve some degree of risk, like starting a startup like owning your own business, like going in the stock market, going into crypto. These things that involve fundamental amounts of risk. That's why they have such high payoffs. Like, why should it be that the payoffs are so high? The answer is because most people won't do it. Most people just refuse to do it. They refuse to incorporate any amount of risk into their lives. And the thing is, if you have enough risks, and those risks are diverse enough, the reality is that, yeah, okay, I might lose money here, I might lose money here, I might lose money here, but I'll make money over there, make money over there, make money over there. And if you average it all out, in the long run, you'll be fine. And you can architect your life in such a way that you will be fine. Or you can make sure that you have a nest egg or a cushion, such that even if everything goes wrong, look, I'll still be okay. I'll still have a house over my head. I still have my family. I'm not going to literally die if things go wrong, or I'm not going to, eternally torch my reputation if things go wrong. And so what you see, I mean, we're both in this industry for a reason, is that we both fundamentally accepted that this industry is volatile as hell. It's risky. There's crazy ups and downs. Sometimes we look like geniuses. Sometimes we look like morons. But
we're on the moronic side.
Right now, we're on the moronic side. But like that's why the rewards for being right in crypto are so high. And if that wasn't true, if everyone knew that crypto was going to win, if it was already basically baked into the bread that crypto was done, then you wouldn't be making this kind of potential outcomes.
Right.